how do we deal with change? How do we face things that are difficult to face? And how do we find the energy to act when action is what's required of us? And there's our individual choice and our individual decisions. And then there's something that's before all that. Maybe as a species, how the human species manages things. There's so much we think we have some control over, but do we really? I know I've said this before, but it comes up in this kind of talk. And Nancy was talking about adaptation and migration. When I was in 10th grade biology class, the teacher in that class, without warning and without predictability, would sometimes just scream out, adapt, migrate, or die. That's not only the human imperative, but that's the imperative of all life. The climate goes in cycles. History goes in cycles. In some ways, maybe we're dealing with things again that were dealt with almost 100 years ago. We thought we were done with it. And here we are once again struggling with it. So yeah, sometimes we're building and sometimes there's burning. We humans prefer building to burning, but building and burning actually are happening simultaneously. Some people are living quite well. Some people are struggling. What do we do when we're living well? Can we stay open to the struggle of others? When we're struggling, how do we deal with our resentment? How do we deal with that sense that it's not fair? How do we not blame? How do we look back towards ourselves? The teaching of the sixth patriarch, really the teaching of Zen. Don't point your finger out what the other's doing. Turn it back. What am I doing? How am I managing it? So if it's climate change, how do you make your decisions? We in California, we're often struggling with water. Every night, I wash the dishes. I mentioned that last week. Every night, I have to notice we don't have a dishwasher, so I have to wash every dish. How am I setting the water? Do I remember to turn the water down a little bit? Am I aware of my use of water? These are small choices we make in our lives. But Zen asks the question, what am I? So what am I doing? What about the ways that I contribute? How am I, when I have the opportunity, what do I do to mitigate? And these aren't just this isn't just one choice that we make once and we're done. For most of us who aren't in positions of power and authority, who maybe can pass laws or maybe influence on a large scale, but on our own small scale, moment to moment, each breath, as Nancy was talking about, that reborn moment presents us with choices. Do we keep our awareness? Do we even know what it is that we're doing? You know, I was in a meeting and we were talking about the change in the Heart Sutra. And I don't know if some of you have picked it up, some of you may not. But look, I've been in the school since 1979. So what is that? 40 some odd years. We've been chanting the phrase, with every perverted view. Well, we got some feedback. I don't even know the origin of it, but the language has been changed from perverted to deluded. And I know all the times that I chant the Heart Sutra, maybe 20% of the time, I make the change. That means that 80% of the time, I'm a bit on autopilot. I'm just chanting. I'm not actually, when the word perverted comes up, which I'm switching to diluted, am I present? Am I aware of what I'm chanting? And again, as Nancy said, it's not about do I do it right or do I do it wrong? Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But can I use whatever it is that's happening as practice? And what I mean by that, to use whatever's happening as practice means, can I be aware? What level am I turning the water on? Can I turn it a little bit less and get the same result? You know, it's a drop in the barrel. It's a drop in the reservoir. The amount of water that I actually use in an evening's cleanup of the dishes. And yet, can I take it seriously enough? Can I bring my awareness and attention to the moment and follow through on what's important to me, what my values are? As I'm saying this, I'm remembering early on in my beginning practice, there was a phrase I came across, and it says, do everything as if each thing that you're doing in this moment is the most important thing you will ever do. And at the very same time, recognizing that actually it doesn't matter at all. Both are true at the same time. My little bit of water use is insignificant in the amount of water that California has for a season. But one person suddenly adds up to a tremendous amount. So how do I keep my mind? We sometimes ask, why do that? So when I'm washing the dishes, why do that means be aware of your water use. Sometimes, you know, Buddhism and Zen, we talk about the middle way, not too tight, not too loose. I need to be frugal with water, but I also have human rights. I also have my right to water. So how do you balance it? So it's not too tight, not too loose, but it does meet the moment that we're in. So whether it's water or electricity or gasoline, you know, for me, a choice point came up and I had to buy a car. So for me, it was to buy an electric car. Is that better or worse? People can argue about that in terms of the minerals and the elements that are pulled out of the ground to make the batteries. Everything has a downside. Nothing is purely good or purely bad. That's our fantasy life. But in this moment, how do I make my best choice? How do I use my practice to help me face the actual moment, get out of the dream and the fantasy, come back to what really is? And really, can we even do that? Do we even know? We might think we're out of the fantasy, but we're not. So that's why we say try for 10,000 years nonstop. As Nancy said, we don't have to finish it, but we do have to do it. And each one of us has our own way to do it. We get stuck a lot in checking other people. Are you doing it? I have an idea how it should be done, and are you doing it that way? That's actually a distraction. Follow your way. Take responsibility for your existence in this moment. And then, of course, if it's your way and it's in your path, help others to find theirs. It's usually not about telling others what their responsibility is. It's more about helping people open to find their own. Because it's likely somebody's going to find something that I would never have imagined. And that, in that moment for them, might be precisely what's needed. So I guess it's always a caution to not believe our own judgments and our opinions too strongly, but to follow our way, as if it's the most important thing I will ever do, at the same time recognizing that ultimately nature has its own way, and all I can do is find my way in it. And also recognizing that even if I believe it's the correct, true way, I may in fact be wrong. So stay open. Stay open for the lesson that this moment provides us. The moment is not only what offers us our direction, but it's also our teacher. If we're paying attention, it shows us what to do.